It's midweek, and I'm already exhausted. Welcome to Legal AF. We were joking before the show with Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and me that it's like Groundhog Day every day with Donald Trump. Now we're into election denial again. It's back. It's like bell-bottom pants and wide ties. It's back. Every time Donald Trump loses, and he's lost over 300 times effectively in the last 15 months, it's rigged against him. It must be. Mail-in ballots, in Virginia, they must all be phony. And while you have Kash Patel at the same time in the middle of his own quagmire of his own creation, trying to litigate his way out of being publicly called a drunk, he at the same time, he says, get ready. There's going to be arrests soon about 2020. It almost doesn't pass the straight face test. Thank God the judiciary and the public interest groups and the defense attorneys are much better prepared today than they were 15 months ago for exactly what we're watching now. We should pat democracy on the back for what happened last night in Virginia. We'll talk about the Virginia map, what it means for a level playing field come the midterm election, what it means, I think, for the electoral fortune of Virginia Governor Spanberger, who's it's not a boy crush. I don't know what you call it when it's a boy crush. I got a crush on Spanberger. I think she'd be a great potential presidential candidate. And she certainly has shown just since January that she's just the one to stick it to Donald Trump and put a steel spine in the Democratic Party. Trump had a unusual, I guess I thought it was unusual, reaction to the shellacking in Virginia yesterday. We'll talk about that. And then you've got Kash Patel. Oh, Kash Patel. It's hard to believe that 16 months into the administration, we're still talking about him as the FBI director. We thought for sure that he would be cabinet member number 4 out of 12 to hit the pavement at this juncture. He still may be, but he's thrown himself, not a life preserver, but an anvil. Nothing like having a drowning man throw himself an anchor. In the case, I never saw that before, in the case of a new lawsuit that he decided to file against The Atlantic. Yes, because The Atlantic, with some great corroborating reporting, including from within the FBI, alleged that he has an excessive drinking problem with receipts, including the Poodle Room and the Poodle Bar and all these other places. He didn't like it, so he brought a lawsuit. Then he did a press conference. And then he had a bad thing happen to him on the way to another defamation case within 24 hours of filing this one. And it woke up the bear. So you keep poking the Democrats and organizations by claiming that, catch me if you can, I'm not a drunk. They're going to do things to try to catch you. And so we'll talk about the House Democrats and what they are demanding from him in terms of a public sobriety test, effectively, and groups like Democracy Forward and others. And of course, we haven't even talked about what the Atlantic lawyers are going to do to him in a lawsuit should it get that far. So that'll be a fun conversation. Some interesting developments in the attempted prosecution of John O. Brennan, the CIA director under Obama, for a comment or statement or testimony that he gave in 2023 about a 2017 intelligence community briefing about Russia. Hey, newsflash, Russia, Iran, and China try to influence our elections to get their preferred candidate elected. Wow, that's a shock. That's a Pulitzer Prize winning position to take, I assume. And that's what he testified to as a member of the intelligence community, but they've gone after him. Now there's all sorts of weirdness in which grand jury is going to be used to indict him, what's going on with subpoenas related to witnesses and those grand juries, what happened to the lead national security prosecutor down in Florida, why is she no longer on the case, and why is Eileen Cannon's former law clerk on the case? We'll wrap that all together with a ribbon about Brennan. Then this is one of my favorite organizations. I've been following them closely. I think the day I became an American Civil Liberties Union member, I was also a follower and defender of the Southern Poverty Law Center from the get-go, maybe because their legal director had a last name very similar to mine back in the day. All they do is go after hate and extreme organizations and groups. Track them, catalog them, infiltrate them, go undercover with them, get confidential informants from within them, and the rest. And they just got indicted in Alabama, oh yes, for defrauding their donors because they paid some informants within some of these KKK type organizations and white Christian nationalist organizations to give them data that they needed to share with the FBI. This is all part of Donald Trump's post-Charlie Kirk assassination thing, where he said on executive order he was going to go after left-wing groups because he thinks that's where all the violence comes from, as opposed to the right-wing extremist groups. So now they're indicting the Southern Poverty Law Center for monitoring the right-wing hate extremist groups, and they're bringing them under wire fraud. We'll talk about it with the former prosecutor, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, and then some interesting developments related to the United States Supreme Court as we await a couple of key decisions for them. Donald Trump was bored at 3 o'clock in the morning again and started bashing the United States Supreme Court. So we will talk about that as well. Let's bring in Karen Friedman Agnifilo.
Hello. How are you today?
Hello. I'm doing great. It's a fine day. It's a good day. It's always a good day to do the midweek with you.
I'm always happy to be here on a Wednesday. It's my favorite day.
Yep. So let's turn to what happened in Virginia. So for those that follow closely, like our audience, there's been a lot of attempted remap drawing, right? We've been talking about it for the last year. We had Texas went first and tried to eliminate 5 Democratic seats, and they had 5 Republican seats. Texas legislators went to Chicago. They were threatened with arrest. California responded with a referendum that passed, prop whatever, and they redrew their map. So now we're even. Then other states went. Missouri and Louisiana tried, and some other states. So going into last night, Karen, the Republicans had successfully remapped to give them a 5-seat advantage after you canceled Texas and California out. Now, I want to do an asterisk, one caveat. Just because you draw a map, and just because it may, if you map it onto the last electoral results, it may say, this was a +8 Kamala district. This was a +12 Trump district. Not necessarily, depending upon turnout. If the Democrats come in, it may not be +5 Republican seats in Texas. Maybe they lose 2 of them. Maybe 2 become purple. Maybe they become blue. But it's based on maps and predictions of what that district will do if the last election holds, which I'm not sure that is going to work this time around. So that's how we went into the night of the new ballot initiative by Virginia to redo their map. And why don't you take it from there?
Yeah, it passed by a narrow vote, and it now allows the Democrats to withdraw their congressional maps. And as you said, it could potentially flip multiple seats. So they had a strong turnout in Virginia in the heavily populated areas, and it gives the Democrats an opportunity to at least fight back in this effort to gerrymander, which is what the Republicans have been trying to do across the country. I mean, I personally, and this is my opinion, think gerrymandering is wrong. I don't like gerrymandering. I think it's unfair. I think the fact that you're allowed to do things like use political party to draw your maps shouldn't be the case. I think it actually disenfranchises voters. But we're in a place where gerrymandering not only is allowed, it's how we draw congressional districts around this country. And you've got Republicans who started this. They're the ones who are doing this to try to disenfranchise Democrats. So Democrats have no choice but to fight back and to neutralize what the Republicans have been doing in various states. So thankfully it did pass, and hopefully we can have an election that's resembling something like fair during the midterms.
Yeah, so I mean, if this works, it goes from 6 to 5 Democrat of the 11 congressional districts to 11, or goes 6-5 to 10-1. And that pickup would neutralize the other seats that have been created in places like Missouri. So at least we're starting on an even playing field. But what I love about it is that it wasn't an overwhelming turnout. There was overwhelming turnout in certain districts, And I think there will be an overwhelming turnout at midterms. But even with just a normal turnout, the pro-democracy plan, which is what we're at right now. I mean, I love to live in a world where we don't gerrymander. Everybody wants to live in that world, but we don't. And so if they're going to do it, or as one Democrat said, we got to bring a gun to a knife fight. We can't bring a paperclip to a knife fight. And that's the problem with Democrats usually. Too much hand-wringing, too much, I'm not saying don't play by the rules. Play by the rules. Don't ignore the rules. And if you're getting gerrymandered out of existence, do something about it. So it was a good wake-up call for the Democrats, I thought. And I do love everything about what Virginia Governor Spanberger is doing. From her acceptance speech when she won, just 4 months later, leading the charge and delivering in a way that's equivalent to, or even greater than, what somebody who's been in office for years, like Gavin Newsom, was able to accomplish. Yeah, it's a bigger state and all. Virginia was very, very important. We got Barack Obama, who is out there campaigning on behalf of this, understanding its importance. I like her for national office, even beyond Virginia. I'm not looking to rip her away from the Commonwealth of Virginia. However, if we're thinking about what is our bench, what does the Democratic bench look like in for 2028, how do you not include her in the conversation after what she's delivered in Virginia, Karen?
Yeah, she's a rock star. I agree with you. Her acceptance speech when she won the gubernatorial campaign was so inspiring. And just as a woman, she's such an inspiring person, an inspiring leader. She's somebody who brings people together. She doesn't drive them apart. She's a unifier, and she's strong. She's a really strong person. And I think she could be an excellent leader for some kind of national office. It's great. It's just really great to see what's happening in Virginia. And yeah, I agree. I have a girl crush on her too.
That's it. I had a girl crush. So, all right. So let's move on from the politics of Virginia. And we've had a lot of success. I mean, even you and I weren't together last week while I was traveling or whatever, but we had a special election, another special election in New Jersey in a House race, in a state assembly race that went for the Democrats. I mean, every major race, there's been almost 290 of them up and down state and federal government, special elections and regular elections. The Democrats have overperformed by 90% in those races. They flipped 31 or 32 seats from red to blue. There's been no flip seats from blue to red during that time period. So it's not, look, Donald Trump can tap dance his way around his abysmal, almost historically abysmal polling numbers. I mean, AP just came out. He's down to 33%. I don't even know how it's that high. I've said it should have a two handle, two something. And I think we're heading there. 29% is not out of the realm. And there you go. At 68%, let's see, Trump's 33%, 77% of independents reject Donald Trump. And he only has a 68% of Republicans, meaning 32% of Republicans have given him the finger. So when you have that going on, you can sort of, you can see the talking points, right? Oh, the pollsters are always wrong. They said Kamala was going to win Iowa by 19 points, and look what happened. Oh, Trump always underperforms in polling bias. Okay. Then what about the 300 races where people actually went to a poll and pulled a lever or an electronic button? What about that? So there's only so much you can do. Now, people outside of the hermetically sealed, crazy world of Donald Trump who aren't, dependent on him for a paycheck like the elected officials in Congress, they're worried. The Senate Republicans are effing worried because they're getting wiped out in fundraising right now. And whereas I thought, look, the House, unless the Democrats do something extraordinarily stupid between now and then, or Donald Trump heals the world, heals the planet, which he's not going to do, or grows a brain, the House should be pretty secure. We got to get out and vote. I don't know, 240, 250 in seats, real possibility, at least 235. Senate, at the beginning of the term, we were like, that's a pipe dream. That's never going to. I hope it happens. I don't think it's going to happen, to get 6 seats in our favor. And now all of a sudden, the 6 seats look really possible. And the Republican senators are worried about it. if we take Ohio back with Sherrod Brown, who I think the Ohioans are going to like return him to the Senate, and we take Michigan back, and even Florida is in play. Ashley Moody is not that well known or well liked in Florida. We got Friedman, the guy that led to the impeachment of Donald Trump, running for Senate there. We've got Maine. Everybody hates Susan Collins, Republican and Democrat. So hopefully a strong Democrat can take that seat in Maine. Alaska, Patel, she's up in her fundraising. Tallarico in Texas. You start adding all this puzzle together, all of a sudden we got 51 seats. Now we got to vote, right? And for people that need the palm card, the talking point as to why this is really, really important, okay, is that the Senate is, as we've seen, is the one that confirms judges, Supreme Court justices, and I guarantee you, dollars to donuts, there is going to be an opening on the United States Supreme Court between now and the end of Donald Trump's term. Guaranteed. By natural causes or otherwise. I don't know if it's going to be Alito or Thomas or Alito and Thomas. And at the very least, even if we don't control the presidency, we need to control the Senate. If for no other reason than the Supreme Court. If we don't get the Senate, I don't mean to make this so dire, but if we don't get the Senate, the Supreme Court is lost for 20 years unless we add seats to the Supreme Court, which would be a heavy lift, but possible if a Democrat takes office in 2028. What do you think about all that, Karen?
You put it perfectly, Popok, how important it is that the Democrats take not only the House, but the Senate as well, for no other reason than to put an end and stop the madness of the Trump administration, but also to make sure that people like Supreme Court justices and other people who have to be confirmed aren't just people who are being confirmed now who are not qualified. I mean, look at how many people are not qualified to be in the jobs that they're in Donald Trump's cabinet and in his administration. Now, this is just my opinion, but for example, someone like Pete Hegseth, I don't think should have ever been confirmed. Kash Patel should never have been confirmed. Tulsi Gabbard should never have been confirmed, right? I mean, these are people, and you could keep going down the list. Kristi Noem should never have been confirmed. And, it's just, there's so many people, I think you could go down the list, all of them, frankly, should never have been confirmed. And they require Senate confirmation. And so I think just getting people who are confirmable, they might not be Democrats, they might not be people we agree with, but at least they'll be qualified. At least they'll be people, hopefully, that have some integrity, that have some ethics, that have some qualifications. So it's really important to take back the House and the Senate for that reason, for the reason you said about court appointees, and for also, frankly, if we can get more than just 51 Senate seats. I'm not trying to be greedy. I'm trying to be positive and hopeful, and we can get 2/3 of the Senate. Then you could even impeach people like Trump, who should be impeached, not just impeached, but convicted, because the House impeaches and they vote to impeach, and then the Senate has to have a trial and convict. So that's my long game and my hope, and why it's so important that everybody gets out and votes, and that we do everything we can for no other reason than to just bring back the checks and balances. Right now, there are no checks and balances. You've got the Supreme Court, who is upholding a lot that Trump is doing, not all, but a lot. And you've got Congress that is essentially doing everything Trump wants or not doing things he doesn't want. They are utterly not doing any. The only thing I'm seeing that is remotely fighting back is what Tom Tillis is doing in the Senate, because he's not running for a re-election again in 2028, and he's a Republican, and he basically is saying dismiss the investigation, withdraw the investigation into Jerome Powell, because as you know, they have this criminal investigation, this ridiculous criminal investigation against the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, saying that he's doing a renovation of the Federal Reserve building, and they're saying that, there's cost overruns, so therefore there must be fraud. That's a sham investigation. That is a pretextual investigation just to get Jerome Powell out, because Trump doesn't like the fact that he's not lowering interest rates. And Tom Tillis has basically said, and he can stop it from happening, saying, until you get rid of that, I am not going to confirm your pick for the Federal Reserve. And so, and he testified before Congress today and also showed that he's not going to be independent and that he's not going to stand up to Donald Trump. He refused to answer even basic questions like Elizabeth Warren's question about whether or not the 2020 was the 2020 election. Who won? She just asked him that simple question, just to almost like a little test to see, an integrity test to see, can you at least admit that, are you independent from Trump there? And he wouldn't even answer that. So just that one little Tom Tillis doing his own little part, but it's a huge part to protect the economy and to protect the independence of the Federal Reserve, and doing as much as he can there. And the rest of Congress, because they have to run for re-election, they aren't doing that, and they're just doing anything Donald Trump wants. And so that's why we absolutely have to have checks and balances again, just to have three branches of government that are actually functioning and providing checks and balances to one another, which is exactly what we were created for. Our founding fathers created this country, not to have this unitary executive, the king, coming in and making himself rich at the expense of the rest of us and the rest of the world.
Absolutely. All right. So when we come back from our first break, we'll cover Kash Patel and what he's done and why his position is so on shaky ground right now, despite all the window dressing and wallpaper that he's using to try to cover up for his own problems with the lawsuit. I don't think that's helping him. John Brennan, I think, is chomping at the bit to get this indictment either quashed by a federal judge or not returned by a grand jury. We'll talk about what the difference between District of Columbia and Florida is in terms of John Brennan, the former CIA director. Southern Poverty Law Center, we'll talk about that new indictment and things related to the United States Supreme Court. So many great ways to support what we do here on Legal AF. We've got the Legal AF YouTube channel. We just crossed 1.1 million subscribers. With your help, we'll get to 1.2 million probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks. See if you can become the 1.2 millionth person. Do 12 videos a day. They're running all day, including right now. We also have Legal AF Substack, where we have another 8 to 10 pieces of interesting material. I do essays. Other contributors do them as well. I do a live report with audience participation and comments at 12:30 Eastern Time each day over on Legal AF Substack, where you can also become a member. And of course, just supporting what we do here on Legal AF. We're on YouTube. We're on all podcast platforms. You can leave 5-star reviews and comments. And thank you for helping us in getting, we swept the awards. We swept the Webby Awards for Best News Podcast, winning both the People's Voice Award, which is you guys voting, everybody voting in our audience, and the Committee Award. And then the Intersection Podcast, my podcast on Tuesday night, won the Best New News Podcast. Those are so many different ways to support what we do here. And then we've got our pro-democracy sponsors. Some of them are brand new. Some of them have been with us for the last 6 years. And that's another way that we curate them and vet them and endorse them. And let's take a break. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. It's honestly kind of scary how easy it is today to find someone's personal information online. Your address, phone number, even names of family members. That kind of exposure can have real-world consequences, and more bad actors are using that data to target people just for speaking out or being visible online. As someone with an active online presence, privacy is really important to me. I've seen how quickly personal information can spread. And once it's out there, it's hard to control. Even if you haven't personally dealt with something like that, chances are you know someone who has. And that's exactly why tools like Delete Me matter. With Delete Me, you can protect your personal privacy or the privacy of your business from doxing attacks before sensitive information can be exploited. The New York Times Wirecutter has named Delete Me their top pick for data removal services. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/legalaf and use promo code legalaf at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/legalaf and enter code legalaf at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/legalaf. Code Legal AF. Let's talk about something no one wants to talk about. What happens when you die? Because unfortunately, it's going to happen to you, but you can be prepared with Trust and Will online estate planning. I'll be honest, I've definitely been one of those people who keeps putting this off, and I'm not alone. 43% of Americans say they just haven't gotten around to making a will yet. It's easy to delay, even when you know it matters, especially when it comes to things like naming a guardian for your kids. That's why Trust and Will really stood out to me. You can create an estate plan in as little as 30 minutes, and their online platform walks you through everything step by step. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed or didn't know where to start, this makes it simple. Plus, they offer optional one-on-one support from attorneys in your state, which is a huge help. And it's not just for people with a lot of assets. Everyone has something to leave behind. Trust and Will believes estate planning should be accessible to everyone, so they are committed to making it affordable today and valuable tomorrow. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your loved ones today, tomorrow, and beyond with Trust and Will, the most trusted name in online estate planning. Go to trustandwill.com/legalaf and get 20% off. That's trustandwill.com/legalaf to get your 20% off. Trustandwill.com/legalaf. Welcome back to the midweek edition of Legal AF, and thank you to our pro-democracy sponsors. Kash Patel, well, let me back up a little bit. Ted Lieu, congressperson from California, had a great line yesterday at a press conference. He said, you know, back at the beginning of this administration, somebody posted a photo of the cabinet, you know, all 12 members, and said, this is the best cabinet since 1776. By the way, I'm not sure there was a cabinet in 1776. And now since then, you see Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, the labor secretary, the shark circling around Howard Lutnick for his Epstein connections, Kash Patel, RFK Jr., insider trading allegations against Pete Hegseth. Should I go on?
You know what? Don't gloss over what the labor secretary did. Right?
Well, yeah. Well, I'll let you do it. But yeah. I mean, well, her husband allegedly molested people,
and her father.
Or her father too. All right.
Yes.
Well, it's time to go.
It's her husband.
Oh, you're talking about Cesar Chavez?
No, I am talking about the labor secretary whose name I can't recall, who no one's ever heard of, who was just ousted, a woman.
No, but who's her father?
Oh, her father is just some guy. It's just her dad. Oh, I don't know his name either.
What did he do?
He was also sexting with employees, basically saying, let's keep this private. And then she is texting her staff or emailing them saying, you have to listen to my father and my husband. Her husband and her father were actively sexually harassing staff.
Yeah. The New York Times headline is Labor Department investigates text among secretary's family and staff.
Yeah.
Bring them all in.
It's her father. I mean, how creepy is that?
Yeah. The whole thing is creepy. So she's got to go. And then Richard Chavez wrote to a young female staff member, according to the Times, hearing you are in town, wishing you would let me know. I could have made some excuses to get out and show you around. Please keep this private.
Exactly.
That's daddy.
That's her father. Okay.
Well, you know, the apple doesn't fall far from the the person.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this one to me is just bananas.
Is that any more disgusting and depraved than Kristi Noem's husband wearing all sorts of bimbo cosplay and wanting to marry a woman
that's just his own private kink fetish thing. Like, whatever. It's the national security implication of that, and the humiliation to MAGA, and and all those people who are holier. The sanctimonious, pearl clutching, holier than thou, Kristi Noem. Like that to me, that's what's wrong with that. But this one, like, they're actually creating a hostile work environment for employees, civil servants who work there, who have to deal with the Secretary of Labor's father and husband sexually harassing them, and her, apparently.
So at this
she was having an affair with one of her staffers too.
At this rate, with 4 out already, and Patel, RFK Jr., Hegseth, and Tulsi Gabbard on thin ice. I mean, each one of those people I just mentioned, and Howard Lutnick, has been rumored to be on thin ice and on the way out. You ever seen a cabinet more embroiled in scandal and having their job security so threatened on a regular basis than this cabinet? So there'll be another few. The question is, how did Kash Patel get this far as FBI director? Now, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a special agent or head of counterintelligence at the FBI, a guy named Agent Fuglitzi, went on to Morning Joe, and they asked him how Kash Patel was doing. He's a former FBI. And he said, well, the rumor is that he spends more time in nightclubs than he does on the 7th floor of the Hoover building doing his job. And he got sued for defamation in Texas, in Houston. And in fact, when Kash Patel brought the case yesterday or day before against the Atlantic, because they had a very detailed 20-page article, including insiders cooperating with the reporter about Kash Patel's alleged excessive drinking, some of which we've seen on television, including him chugging a beer and constantly drinking and all of that in public. He decided, in his infinite wisdom, that his best course of action was not just to do a press conference, like Pam Bondi, but to file a lawsuit, which now opens him up and everybody in that world and everybody at every bar he's ever visited up for, and the hockey team, for deposition about what they've observed about, and they weren't just, the reporting by the Atlantic wasn't just, there's rumors that he sometimes can't get up in the morning. He has hair of the dog because he drank too much. And it's just like hyper detailed, as if they've got the receipts. He goes to the Poodle Club in Vegas. I'm sure they've talked to the Poodle Club, or the two staffers on the FBI who they had to admit in the complaint are giving information to the paper about his job performance. They didn't just say sometimes he was difficult to rouse and he would miss a meeting. They said the FBI had to have SWAT level break down the door equipment, and they threatened to use
battering. They call those battering rams.
Battering ram in order to get him out of his bed. These are very hyper detailed information. And so Kash Patel, instead of saying, maybe I should just deny it at press conferences and move on. Oh, no, because he thought he was successful in suing Fuglitzi, he sues the Atlantic and the reporter, and he brags about it. Well, the last time somebody said I was a drunk, I sued them too. Okay. So yesterday, a federal judge appointed by Obama dismisses the Fuglitzi defamation case, I guess, hearing that Kash Patel was using its existence to justify what he did. Kash Patel had a press conference where I don't want to say he didn't look sober, but he looked unhinged in battling it out with the media about things that were in his own complaint that he didn't understand or didn't know was there. And then you've got how wide, Karen, this door has now been open. You've got Democracy Forward. I'm going to have Sky Perryman on tomorrow to talk about it, bringing a Freedom of Information Act request about his travel records and his drinking records and all of that, because it's now fair game. Well, my favorite part of the day, Jamie Raskin sends over a letter to Kash Patel enclosing an audit. Do you know what an AUDIT is? I didn't. Did you know what that is?
An audit?
Do you know? No, this is an acronym this time. An AUDIT. Do you know what that is?
I do not.
It is an alcohol use disorders identification test questionnaire that the Democrats have sent Kash Patel to see if he's got a trouble with alcohol, and are demanding that he take it and report back, and they want to put him under oath.
I was going to say, is it under penalty of perjury?
They want it to be under penalty of perjury. Yeah. That's in their demand letter too. They want him before the Oversight and Judiciary Committee to talk about how these things implicate national security. In fact, it's funny. I'm pulling the letter together here. We're a news organization. We're a commentary organization. So, we like to say things like the alleged excessive drinking and all of that. But here's what Jamie Raskin wrote as a member of Congress. A damning explosive report recently revealed that the men and women of the Federal Bureau of Investigation are privately and at times publicly alarmed by your episodes of excessive drinking and unexplained absences, citing to Sarah Fitzpatrick's article in The Atlantic. There are numerous accounts that you consume alcohol to the point of illness, direct profanity-laced outbursts to support staff, and pass out drunk behind locked doors in episodes, making you so unreachable that agents have had to fetch SWAT-level breaching equipment to awaken you. After repeatedly and inexplicably disappearing for long stretches of time, only to reappear conspicuously inebriated, that there's no cite to that one. It is no surprise that your purported drinking habits and erratic schedule have had demonstrably disastrous effects on your performance of duties as FBI director. And it goes on from there. I love the way Jamie Raskin writes, by the way.
I love the way Jamie Raskin writes, the way he asks questions.
Oh, yeah.
The way he's incredible.
Right. So he says on page 2, for the sake of our own security, we need to know, for example, quote, how many drinks containing alcohol do you have on a typical day when you're drinking? How often during the last year have you failed to do what was normally expected because of drinking? How often during the last year have you needed a first drink in the morning to get yourself going after a heavy drinking session the night before? How many hair of the dogs have you had? How often during the last year have you been unable to remember what happened the night before because you've been drinking? I went over this test today on Substack Live, and I told people, as a goof, I said, don't put it in the chat. Take the test yourself. see how you would do. Sorry. See how you would do. And then basically, here's a 10-question screening tool we are demanding that you take along with a sworn statement. So I don't know what Kash Patel, I'll turn it to you. I don't know what he thought he was accomplishing with his lawyers in trying to take some page out of Donald Trump's playbook. Donald Trump doesn't win his defamation cases either, by the way. He might settle with people because they're worried about what Donald Trump will do in retaliation, but he doesn't win his defamation cases. So what is happening here, and how big of a hole do you think Kash Patel has blown in his own credibility or his ability to keep this job?
Look, there's a couple of issues, right? Number one, he was already, I would say, on thin ice, and there's rumors swirling around that he's the next one on the chopping block. I think he's paranoid about that, and it's for good reason, right? He's not doing a good job. He's firing excellent FBI agents for just doing their job. They are focusing on all the wrong things at the FBI. They're taking credit for things that local law enforcement's doing, like the murder rate that has almost nothing to do with the FBI. And he's under siege. He's failing to deliver on Donald Trump's promises and decimating what was an already amazing, incredible organization of public servants who really were the top law enforcement in this country, and to fire some of them and demoralize them or turn their sights on things that aren't the most serious crimes in this country. I think that was already he's not doing a good job being the FBI director, to say the least, number one. Number two, that's a 24/7 job. I used to be in law enforcement. I used to be a prosecutor, and I was the number 2 at the Manhattan DA's office. There were things that came up in the middle of the night, a terrorist attack, a murder, something that I had to be woken up in the middle of the night. If I was blackout drunk and couldn't tell people what to do or answer questions or advice, I couldn't do my job. And so if this is true, if these allegations are true, he is utterly unqualified to do his job. Not to mention the fact that he is spending taxpayer dollars flying all around the country for personal reasons. And that's been documented many times, going to the Olympics and drinking with the U.S. Olympic hockey team and acting like a just crazy person in that locker room. Everyone saw that. I mean, and we paid for that. It's just insane. But, when you look at the Atlantic and you look at what they printed, just to put in context for people who aren't familiar with the Atlantic, I'm sure everybody must be and is, but in case you're not, there's different kind of levels of journalism, right? You've got at the bottom, you've got sort of tabloid journalism, kind of the rags, if you will. And, those are gossipy and often not very careful and often biased and frankly, sometimes not truthful and often not truthful. And so I don't trust them very much, and nor should most people. Then you've got respectable journalism. You've got newspapers that are national newspapers that we all read, and I think those are excellent, and they have certain journalistic standards. And then you've got and this is my opinion. Then you've got journalism. You've got sort of places like the Atlantic. And I would only put a handful of organizations or entities in that category. I think the Atlantic is one of the premier just journalistic places that we have. They are extremely careful. They are extremely detailed. They do their homework. They take their time. It's not like they come out every day with a new story. They're like a magazine format. And in a piece like this, because it's so important, because it's so serious, because the allegations are so strong, this would have been months in the making. And they would have double, triple, quadruple. They would have checked their sources 10 times over. They would have done things like look for corroboration, whether it's videos, receipts, witnesses, etc. And they are not going to print a single word in that is going to open them up to any sort of defamation lawsuit. Because why? What is the defense to defamation? It's the truth. And if so, it has to be a lie, and they have to have known it was a lie or recklessly disregarded that it was a lie in order for Kash Patel to be successful. Because the standard is Kash Patel has to show that the Atlantic acted with actual malice. Even if they make a mistake, that is not enough to get to over the bar and get to a defamation, get a claim for defamation. They have to show that they either knew it was false or they recklessly disregarded that it was false. And so just knowing the quality of journalism that comes out of the Atlantic, the amount of fact checking that they do, the amount of research that they do, and the amount of work that they do on their cases. And I know because they've done it on some of my cases, and I've just been a reader of the Atlantic for a long time. To me, they are at the top of journalistic standards. And for Kash Patel to go after them, I think it's a losing proposition from the start. I think they're going to have, if nothing else, they're going to prove that it's not actual malice and not defamation. And as part of that, as part of getting to that point, will they also be able to prove through discovery? Because that's what happens now that we're in a civil suit, right? You get to depose people. The Atlantic will get to depose Kash Patel. They'll get to ask for receipts. They'll get to talk to people at the Poodle Room, and they'll get to look at his bar bills and whatever else, his credit card receipts. They'll get to talk to and depose FBI agents. And so they might not only be able to prove that they didn't defame him because they didn't act with actual malice, they might actually be able to prove that it was true. And so I don't know why Kash Patel did this. It seems like a strange thing to come out fighting and protest like this, and to essentially he did a press conference where now he's denied that he was locked out of his computer, which makes no sense because he says, no, I wasn't locked, because one of the allegations in the Atlantic is that Kash Patel went to go sit down at his computer and he was locked out of it, or he couldn't get into it, let's say. And he freaks out. He became extremely paranoid, thought he was fired, thought he was locked out, and acted extremely erratically and kind of went nuts. And the defamation suit, what he says in his lawsuit against the Atlantic, he says, "Oh, that was just a technical error. It turns out I was only temporarily locked out because there was some technology error." And that's all it was. And so that's what he said in his defamation suit. But he goes on to he goes does a press conference with Todd Blanche, announcing what we're going to talk about soon. This indictment against the Southern Poverty Law Center, and a reporter asked a question about this suit, and he now denies that he was ever even locked out of the computer, which is exactly the opposite of what his defamation suit says. So I think he's got a lot of problems ahead of him. And I think he's just prolonging and turning what a one-day story is now going to turn into an endless source of stories over and over and over again. People who are going to prove 10 ways to Sunday that it's true. And now we can all talk about it over and over and over again. So if he lasts that long in his position.
And we have new reporting that's just come out, a couple of updates here to stories that we already covered, that the FBI is being used by Kash Patel to go after the New York Times reporter, Elizabeth Williamson, about her story concerning Kash Patel sort of whining and dining his girlfriend with government security and transportation, including the company jet, the FBI jet. You have Jamie Raskin referencing the fact that booze is being loaded into the company jet, the FBI jet, and now he's using his position to try to, in an interim effect, go after the reporters to chill their First Amendment and freedom of the press. That's, for those that are wondering, the thing that always chaps my backside in the polling is that it says 70% of America effectively rejects Donald Trump. Okay, I'm there for that. But 65%, or now it's down to 55%, reject the Democratic Party. Don't think of it that way, because the Democrats are the party out of power right now. So it's very hard to point to something that they've done other than try to rein in and out of control Donald Trump. Think about what they will be like when they have their hands on the controls of the democracy. And if you don't like the things that you're watching now, where a corrupted Department of Justice and FBI, led by corrupted people, are going after their political enemies and reporters and the media, just assume that when the Democrats are in power and they're on a root out corruption campaign, these things are not going to happen. So vote for that, as opposed to, well, what's my local congressperson done for me lately? Well, your local congressperson, if he's a Democrat, he's sort of been bound and gagged for the last 2 years until the midterms. But those things will change. And just to prove the point, we started the show with sort of celebrating Virginia and Governor Spanberger, and now we've got the Republican National Committee, controlled by Donald Trump, having filed a successful injunction suit to enjoin. Now you understand Donald Trump's recent rant about, I couldn't understand the ballot, and I don't think the voters did either. Well, we have a judge now in a county I'm not familiar with Virginia, so forgive me. But this judge in Tazewell County, Judge Jack Hurley, a circuit court judge, trial level judge, has just blocked the certification of the vote. Here we go again, related to the ballot initiative to allow Virginia to change its congressional districts. So now we got to take an appeal all the way up to the Virginia Supreme Court. In fact, I'm going to have the Attorney General for Virginia, Jay Jones, join me tomorrow to talk about what they're going to do next to try to defeat this lawsuit and this injunction. But you see how many dirty tricks the Republicans have up their sleeve when they don't like the outcome of an election. So we have that to update you on as well. With that, Karen, let's turn to Brennan. So you have John O'Brennan, former CIA director, spy master of the United States under Obama, a political foe or critic of Donald Trump, who people in the Trump world have despised since he testified in 2017 and again in 2023 that the Intelligence Community Assessment, the ICA, was that Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea were all trying to use various techniques, including hacking, including social media, trolling, to try to undermine our democracy and our vote and to get their candidate of choice elected, Donald Trump. Donald Trump didn't like that. He didn't like the fact that that was out there, even though he himself called on the Russians to release Hillary Clinton's emails to help his own campaign. Be that as it may, that intelligence community assessment was confirmed by the Senate, including Marco Rubio with the Senate Intelligence Committee about that role. I mean, it's really not, it should be unobjectionable for thinking people to acknowledge that our enemies, through all of their methods, try to influence our election, including having fake bots and accounts. 70% of the pro-Trump accounts are overseas. What do you think that indicates? A tremendous authentic interest in Donald Trump? No, it's bots and trolls and bad people around the world trying to make Americans believe that they're American accounts with American people behind it, extolling the virtue of MAGA and Donald Trump and trying to undermine Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden and the rest. A lot of the bad memes and a lot of the fake rumors, even about Joe Biden, were circulated through bots and trolls and phony accounts outside of the United States. That should be something we all embrace as a truism, as a fact, but not for Donald Trump, because he thinks it undermines him and emasculates him and makes him look weak. And so he's going to go after John Brennan. So they put together a little prosecution team headed by Jason Redding Quinones, who was a mediocre judge down in Miami, then became a mediocre assistant U.S. attorney or vice versa, and now is a hand-picked prosecutor in the Southern District of Florida for Donald Trump, friends with Ed Martin and friends with, MAGA people, and he's running that office. Then you've got Main Justice in Washington, and you've got a grand jury that's been reportedly opened or convened in D.C. and one in Florida where Aileen Cannon is the presiding judge. In D.C., the presiding judge over all things grand jury is Jeb Boasberg, chief judge of the D.C. courts. Okay. When it comes to the indictment against John Brennan for purportedly lying about the intelligence briefing and the Steele dossier, a now discredited report that was prepared by a guy named Michael Steele that tried to make Donald Trump look bad, including some scandalous observations about his bathroom and sex habits.
Things I wish I didn't hear and wish I didn't have to have an image of in my mind.
Which is why I'm not mentioning it now.
Thank you.
And so that got discredited by the intelligence community, and they had their own data. They had their own information that they used instead. So there's been a grand jury issuing subpoenas out of Florida for documents. There's been, what we learned is that the lead national security prosecutor in Miami is about to get canned. She got reassigned because she refused to indict Brennan. Her office was in touch with the witnesses for the intelligence community who were willing to cooperate with her, probably to support John Brennan. When the case got moved over to D.C. and Trump had Joe DeGenova. You ever run into Joe DeGenova in your practice?
No.
Yeah. He's like slightly more competent Rudy Giuliani. He's 81 years old, goes on Fox all the time and Newsmax. He's always railing against people like John Brennan, particularly, gets himself in trouble, gets sued because the crap he says.
So he's squarely in Team Crazy?
No, he was literally part of Team Crazy. He was Rudy, Powell, Ellis. Then they hired DeGenova and his wife. They lasted about a week, and then they were too crazy or too sane for Team Crazy, so they got fired, and then they disappeared, and now they're back. He's now the special attorney, not counsel, special attorney working for Todd Blanche. And so why don't you take it from there with some reporting about the subpoenas and all sorts of herky-jerky motions at the Department of Justice against John Brennan.
Yeah, look, there seems to be some kind of internal conflict or discourse going on at the Department of Justice, because the Department of Justice is usually extremely buttoned up, and when they do something, they mean it, and they don't change their mind. And they issued subpoenas for people, members of the intelligence community, to have to come in and testify in the grand jury against John Brennan. And they all of a sudden just withdrew these subpoenas, which again, just is so highly unusual. Now, these individuals were willing to come in and cooperate and speak to prosecutors, and instead they wanted to subpoena them. So there's something going on. This case has been investigated 10 ways to Sunday, including by her, if you remember, as special counsel. And this case has been investigated, and no one everyone has said there's nothing to bring here, and this is not a case. And they're going to have a hard time not only getting an indictment, but being able to prove that he lied, because there's two separate cases going on. There's this big sweeping indictment that I think is going on in Florida, which is against everyone from the Clintons to the Bidens to the Obamas to everyone under the sun. It's a conspiracy to rig the election, frankly. And so they're going to try to investigate everybody, and that's rigged because, as you said, it's in the Southern District of Florida. It's in Eileen Cannon, who will let them do whatever they want. And they're going to try to do the sweeping conspiracy investigation, which allows them to cast a wide net and allows them to subpoena a lot of information. But then there's this one targeted indictment that they're trying to seek in Washington, D.C. against Brennan. And it's regarding testimony that he gave, and he in 2016, which makes me wonder how this is still within the statute of limitations, but that's neither here nor there. But someone else will have to figure that out. Well, if this happens, because the statute of limitations usually 5 years, and 2016, I can't believe it, was 10 years ago. And this was false statements that he made to Congress, saying that he misrepresented aspects of the Russian interference intelligence assessment. And so that's going to be tough to prove, because they're focusing on statements by the CIA director about intelligence judgments, right? Intelligence judgments are inherently nuanced, and they come from multiple sources, and it's hard to prove whether they are true or false, especially because so much of what they draw upon is classified or confidential. And so it's going to be very hard for them to prove that it was actually false, what he said. Plus, I don't think it was false. And they have to show that it was materially false, and that he knew it was false and willfully lied, not just a disputed interpretation. So I think it's going to be hard to prove, but they're going to do everything they can, because that's what the Trump administration, that seems to be their sole focus, to go after Trump's enemies and not work for the American people.
When we come back, we will talk about the Southern Poverty Law Center and how they're now under indictment, and talk a little bit about the United States Supreme Court. So many ways to support what we do on Legal AF. Come over to the Legal AF YouTube channel, help us get to 1.2 million subscribers. It's an extraordinary number, all because of the fervent support of our audience. 12 new videos a day, and podcasts galore. We've got the Court of History. We've got Unprecedented. We've got It's Complicated, and Adam Klasfeld's work, some amazing artists, contributors, over there as well. American Civil Liberties Union, Democracy Forward, and the rest. And then we've got the Legal AF Substack. We've got essays, we've got writings, we've got filings, we've got one or more live reports a day, all on Legal AF Substack. Another great way to support what we do is to become a subscriber, a member on Legal AF Substack. And then, of course, we've got our pro-democracy sponsors, And here they are now. I love coffee, the taste, the ritual, all of it, but sometimes the caffeine, it can be a little too much. That's why I've been enjoying Mud Water. Their new low-caf coffee blend gives you real coffee taste with calmer, steadier energy. It's made with organic Arabica coffee beans, L-theanine, and functional mushrooms like lion's mane and cordyceps. So I feel focused and awake without the jitters or crash. And if you want something gentler, their original blend is still there too. Ready to make the switch to cleaner energy? Head to mudwater.com and grab your starter kit today. Right now, our listeners get an exclusive deal up to 43% off your entire order, plus free shipping and a free rechargeable frother when you use code LegalAF. That's right, up to 43% off with code LegalAF at MUDWTR.com. After your purchase, they'll ask you how you found them. Please show your support and let them know we sent you. One more time, up to 43% off with code LegalAF at MUDWTR.com. After you purchase, they'll ask you how you found them. Show support and tell them we sent you. Look, magnesium, it's something most of us lack. And if you're taking that drugstore variant, you're still not getting the full picture. Industrial farming, chronic stress, and everyday aging all make it worse. Most supplements only use one form of magnesium, but magnesium comes in many forms that support your body in different ways. That's why you need to try Qualia Magnesium Plus. It combines 10 bioavailable forms of magnesium with more than 70 trace minerals for comprehensive full spectrum support. Sleep deeper, think sharper, recover faster, support muscle strength, a steadier mood, and balanced energy metabolism. It's not just a sleep supplement. Oh no, it's a full body magnesium system built for modern living so you can feel your best every day. Since adding Qualia Magnesium Plus to my routine, I'm feeling easier recovery from workouts and a calm, more centered wind down at night. It's been a supportive addition to my daily wellness routine. Experience the most trusted magnesium for purity, potency, and performance. Plus, it's non-GMO, vegan, and gluten-free, making it a choice you can feel good about. Go to qualialife.com/legalaf for 50% off. And here's a bonus. Use the code LegalAF for an additional 15% off your order. That's QUALIA life.com/legalaf and then use code LegalAF. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring this episode. Welcome back. Thank you for being such great supporters of the Legal AF ecosystem. And Brennan, welcome back to the podcast with Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and Michael Popok. Before we move on to the Southern Poverty Law Center suit, let's just wrap up something related to John Brennan. Karen, you want to take it?
Yeah. So over the break, I looked up when the testimony John Brennan gave that is the subject of this indictment that they're saying he committed perjury. And it was 2023, about the 2016 election. So when I said 2016 before, how can it be within the statute of limitations? Because it was 10 years ago. It's a 5-year statute. I misspoke. So I wanted to correct it. It was the testimony was in 2023, which is obviously within the 5-year statute of limitations. So thanks for letting me correct that.
Absolutely. All right. So let's move on to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Organization that was created to combat hate and extremism. Not the first time the Trump administration has gone after people like that. I just interviewed the founder of the Center Against Digital Hate Online, which the Trump administration also went after. You know, it's just mind-boggling. They go
after the good guys.
Well, it all stems from his executive order in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, in which he blamed the left for all the violence in America, instead of what we saw with our own eyes on January 6th, the Capitol almost being burnt to the ground. That wasn't left-wing people. That wasn't Antifa in disguise or FBI agitators. That was the right. What happened in Charlottesville, people marching with boots and torches. That wasn't, moderate librarians. That was right-wing extremists. And the Southern Poverty Law Center has been following them and doing an index about hate for 60 years. I mean, including infiltrating the KKK, the John Birch Society, and lots of other organizations. And they do it with the similar techniques that law enforcement use. If anybody is interested, go watch Black Klansman, Spike Lee's movie. about how you pay informants. Sometimes you're able to get somebody to like, hi, everybody, I'm here to join. And then I don't know why I use a Southern accent, sorry. But, and they get them, oh, come on in, here's your hood. And we're going to be doing a cross burning at 4:30. And sometimes you can't do that. And you have to pay off the people that are in there to give you information. And that's what the Southern Poverty Law Center did. By the way, I assume they did that all these years. So if I donated to them, which I believe I have, the fact that they used some of that money to pay off the Grand Wizard or whatever they were doing is fine by me, as long as the ends justify the means, as long as they're getting information. And they used to have a direct conduit to share with the FBI, the way that the Anti-Defamation League did. But as soon as the crazies took over the FBI, like Kash Patel, he decided to attack the Southern Poverty Law Center because they're only going after right-wingers, because Donald Trump loves that vote. So if you're wondering what vote Donald Trump is pandering to right now, it is the racist vote. It is the white supremacist, white Christian nationalist vote that he thinks helped get him elected. It's part of his coalition, let's call it. And so that's because, the rest of us are going, why are you pandering to the KKK crowd? That's why. Because he thinks that's part of the grand coalition that helps get MAGA elected. So, of course, consistent with that, they go after the SPLC. Now, the SPLC is, if you're thinking of the pantheon of groups that do good, do good things in America, American Civil Liberties Union, Anti-Defamation League, NAACP, Southern Poverty Law Center. Don't be fooled by their name. A lot of people are. They've been tracking hate, which is usually down in the South, a lot of the groups, so not exclusively, for decades. And now they just got indicted in Alabama for taking in donations and paying off informants. Karen, take it from there.
Look, just to put this into a little bit of context, again, when I was a prosecutor, I had top secret clearance and I would attend these top secret intelligence briefings. And for much of the time that I was there, it was absolutely stated that the number one terrorist threat and the number one threat to the United States came from within and came from these groups, came from these white supremacist groups, and that this was something we had to turn our sights on and educate ourselves about. These are some scary, scary guys, okay? This is no joke. These are absolutely, they're not just hate groups. These are violent people. And they need to be dismantled. They need to be brought down. They need to be prosecuted. And anyone who donates to the Southern Poverty Law Center knows that that is their mission. That is what they do. And that is what they are going after. And they have successfully crippled organizations like certain chapters of the KKK by bringing civil lawsuits and getting damages on behalf of families that the KKK injures or kills or does stuff to, and then they have to they get paid, and then they bankrupt them essentially through these civil lawsuits. The other thing that the Southern Poverty Law Center does that is known to everybody is they pay informants and they infiltrate these organizations to get information, not to support the organization, not to somehow make the organization thrive and succeed, but it's to bring them down, which is exactly what everyone who donates to them knows that they do. And then they share this information with the FBI. They have this very close relationship with the FBI up until Kash Patel, where they would give information to the FBI. They were a key partner of the FBI. Not only did this help save FBI taxpayer resources so that they didn't have to go in and pay these informants to get the same information so that they could be prosecuted, they were truly doing and hopefully will continue doing great work. But they have been indicted and charged with fraud, and it is filed in the Middle District of Alabama, where every single federal judge in the district court there is a Trump appointee, which is not great, obviously, for the case. And And essentially, the allegation is that they secretly funneled more than $3 million in funds. And because they're a 501c3, they have to disclose to donors what they're doing with their money. And the Department of Justice is saying they never said they were going to give millions of dollars to things like the KKK, and therefore it's wire fraud. And they're charged with 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of making false statements to banks, 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. And it's all part of Trump's huge revenge plot to go after his enemies, just like he did universities and law firms. And now he's going after these organizations like this that are pushing back against the administration. And the government's theory is that they paid these high-ranking white supremacists. But the thing is, they ignore the reason. Yes, they paid them, but they're ignoring the reason. Again, what's their mens rea? What's their intention? What were they trying to do? And if what they were trying to do is bring down these organizations, how is that lying to the donors? That's absolutely not lying to the donors. And if I were them, or even if I'm not them, but I think there should be an open letter from all of the donors to the Southern Poverty Law Center. People should be able to sign on and sign their names. I'm not defrauded. I don't feel lied to. This is what I wanted my money to go to. I mean, that's pretty powerful evidence, I think, that they could use to fight this indictment. And they've done so much good work dismantling hate groups. They sued ICE before other people were suing ICE. During COVID, they successfully litigated prison mental health care in Alabama. They've litigated things like voting rights. They've done a lot of really, really good work. Now, there's a couple of problems with the indictment. Number one, their theory that they were fundraising by saying that they were seeking to dismantle the KKK, but paying informants and saying that's fraud. But again, that ignores the fact that, as you pointed out, Popok, that the FBI does the exact same thing routinely. And number one. And number two, donors aren't going to feel defrauded, because how else do you think you get into these groups? Everyone knows that. So I think they have a problem there. And also, only the Southern, I don't want to say only, but only the Southern Poverty Law Center was indicted. They didn't indict any individuals. They indicted the business, the corporation. And so they are unable to show that any one person intentionally deceived a donor. And there's been no allegation that the donors were promised that no donor funds would be used to pay informants, or that any particular methodology would be used or not used. So it's going to be really hard for them to prove organizational liability without proving that any member somehow committed a fraud, but that they don't allege it. But, Todd Blanche says, well, the case is ongoing, the investigation's ongoing. So I think they're going to continue. They're going to continue investigating it, and it's not the last we're going to see of this. Now, some people are comparing this to, how is this different than the Build the Wall case against Steve Bannon, where he and others were charged.
Who's comparing it to that?
Convicted.
Who's comparing it to that?
So that's what I've heard. I've heard people saying
they didn't build the wall.
Well, I'm about to say why it's different.
Oh.
But the Steve Bannon, they were charged and they were charged and convicted of promising donor funds would be used for this purpose, right, to build the wall. But proof showed that no funds were used for that. And I think they're going to be able to show that the purpose, that the proof there, that they get over that. I think that's how Todd Blanche and the DOJ are going to justify this, saying, how is this any different? But of course, that case is no longer a case. So.
Yeah, I think it's completely different. It's not even a close call. I do like the way you analyze the indictment about the problems with who are the defrauded, where are the defrauded,
right?
Who is going to come forward and say, I didn't see the way they make you think the business model is run at the Southern Poverty Law Center, is that there is no hate in America. The Southern Poverty Law Center, in order to justify its existence, has created and funded hate groups, artificial, like AstroTurf groups, that don't naturally exist and keep them funded because it's in their best interest in order to fight. In other words, they're the arsonist firefighter. They set the fire and then they come in and raise money to put out the fire. But that's not what's happening here. These hate groups really do exist. And all they're trying to do with their donor money that they're using is to infiltrate the hate groups in order, as you said earlier, to get the information to turn over to law enforcement or use in the civil suits. As an example, we've had Robbie Kaplan on our show a number of times, including she's currently representing the group that I talked about against digital hate and its founder. She represented a group of victims and survivors of the Charlottesville March, blood and soil, whatever the march was, all the Nazi slogans that led to the death of a paralegal when she was run over by someone in Charlottesville, by one of the members of those organizations. And she sued those organizations civilly and bankrupted them and got titles to everything that they owned. And so that is an effective technique and tool where the KKK owns property, you get all their property. The white supremacist group owns property and bank accounts and cars and jewelry or whatever, you get it all in terms of a civil case. And so that is the methodology of the Southern Poverty Law Center. I don't know if this indictment survives a motion to dismiss, but we'll have to see what lawyers volunteer their time. Hopefully some of the best ones in the white collar community volunteer their time and circle the wagons around the SPLC. They didn't ask me to do this, but if you've got a spare penny, spare shekel, go over to their website. I'm sure they're accepting donations to help them, maybe a legal defense fund to help them with this indictment. And they sure do need it. As of right now, they have said publicly that they are not going to be intimidated by the Trump administration. They're going to continue to do their job. But this would be the equivalent if the Trump administration were to sue the NAACP, the American Civil Liberties Union, or anybody else that takes in money. See, they're trying to go after the money. Could be Act Blue, anybody. This is the targeted list of people. You've got the split screen. They're busy settling with all the bad guys like Michael Flynn and Bannon.
Or pardoning.
Carter Page, or like what?
Or pardoning them.
Or pardoning or settling with them, right?
Yeah.
And giving them cash. Ashley Babbitt's family. Or they are indicting moderate left-wing honorable organizations to try to have a chilling effect on them, going after the media at the same time. We see the strategy, right? We know the playbook. We know what we're watching. So now it's up to our audience to sort of put it all together. And the call to action here on this particular show is voting. And I said this during a Substack Live. Even if you're a blue dot in a red sea, you can help voting in the 4 or 5 Senate battleground states that matter. You don't have to be a registered voter in that state in order to knock on doors or phone bank or help register. You don't even have to be a citizen, frankly, to do those things. That's not how that works. So you can volunteer to the state Democratic Party for the states that we've identified, that we identified. You can, if you want to, instead of taking a vacation to, I don't know, the Poconos, you can go off to one of these places and you can go work, shoe leather, work the doors, work the phones, work the polls. If you're in a state that's really blue, where I'm not saying your vote doesn't matter, but I'm not really that worried about New York. I'm not really that worried about fill in the blank. I am worried about these other states. That's a great place for you to invest your time because that's it. Commentary is fantastic. Nasty letters make me laugh, especially when they're directed towards Trump. But there's no replacement for, and I love taking to the streets, but there's no replacement for voting. Those are in parallel with. Those are supportive of. There's an additive of. They're not a replacement for voting. And I'll leave it on this. The great Barack Obama put it in I think 5 words or less. He said, "Don't vote, don't boo, vote." 3 words, right? And that's all you have to remember. Booing is great. I love it. It's very cathartic. The show is very cathartic for me. However, you have to vote. And it's not just your vote. It's getting 10. Like when I helped Obama in my own way, hummingbird theory, get elected the first time, it wasn't just about my vote. I know that I was responsible for at least 10 votes, probably a few more, because I was a lawyer working at the polls to ensure the votes were properly placed in the right bucket. I worked the phones. I knocked on doors. I convinced people to vote for Obama or to vote at all and vote for Obama. I felt like I was responsible for at least 10 votes. And so when he won by a lot, I was like, yeah. Now, when Hillary ran, to be honest, I voted for her, but it didn't really motivate me to get other people to vote for her, And so I took responsibility for the loss. Same thing here. It's not just your vote. It's a vote multiplier, a force multiplier. And this is the ways that we have to do it. Right, Karen?
Absolutely. It's probably the single most important thing we can do is vote. Everybody has to vote, and it has to be a huge turnout.
Right. And with that, we will win. We were going to talk about the Supreme Court. We'll save it for Saturday. Other than Donald Trump's bashing the Supreme Court again. And the Supreme Court, people like Ketanji Brown Jackson, and there it is, Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sotomayor are fighting back, and Donald Trump doesn't like it. He knows he's going to lose birthright citizenship. We all know he's going to lose birthright citizenship, and he's going to lose Lisa Cook. Look, let me give the headline as we round out of April into June when the term ends. Here's the scorecard. He's going to win some version of congressional maps and the Voting Rights Act out of a Louisiana case called Calais. He's going to lose firing Lisa Cook, the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. They're not going to like his method. They're not going to like the lack of due process or the attack on independence. So she's going to keep her job. This is my prediction. It could be wrong. You can open up this time capsule. He's going to lose bigly in birthright citizenship. 8-1, 9-0, no less than 7-2. Okay, period. Which is good for America and our ideals. There's some other cases floating around out there. And P.S. side note update, he's already starting to pay back the tariffs. Remember when he said, I'll never pay them back. It's terrible for the economy. Yeah, that electronic tariff refund system is already up and running, and people are getting their tariffs back. So don't believe a word that Donald Trump tells you at all. I don't care if he tells you the sky is blue and the grass is green. Don't believe a word he tells you.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you. He is not to be trusted. I mean, just look what he says about Iran every single day, right? It's just insane.
We won. We lost. We won. We won again. We keep winning. All we do is winning.
The strait is open. It's closed. No, it's open. Yeah.
Right. It's just totally crazy. In fact, on that point, I was laughing yesterday during the intersection, and I do that show alone, which means I was laughing with myself.
It's great when you crack yourself up.
I did. I read this from, let me pull it up here. This is one Iranian, this is according to Financial Times, one Iranian diplomatic outpost pointed out on Tuesday, this is a quote. This is when they called him a one-man WhatsApp chat group. This is their quote. This is so perfect. In the past 24 hours, the president of the United States has thanked Iran for the closure of Hormuz, threatened Iran, blamed China, praised China, declared the blockade a success, confirmed Iran restocked through the blockade, promised a deal with Iran, promised bombs will fall on Iran, and then called him a one-man WhatsApp chat. And
then extended the truce indefinitely.
Because he said the leadership in Iran is in flux. It's been in flux since he wiped out 30 of them on the 28th of February. That makes him incapable of negotiating. I mean, look,
I'm glad he chickened out, and I'm glad he's not raining hell and terror on the civilians of Iran. But it's just nuts. No one takes him seriously anymore. Have you seen those Iranian Lego movies?
Yeah.
Oh my God,
yeah.
they're good.
Yeah.
I mean. And I don't want to admit it because I'm anti that regime, but
it's always Taco Tuesday. Has anybody told him maybe he should make these announcements on Monday so it's not Taco Tuesday?
I know.
My favorite line this week, then I'll turn it over to you for a final comment. My favorite line this week was from the Senator John Kennedy, my second favorite John Kennedy. He's a Republican, MAGA, out of Louisiana, but he says some homespun shit that just makes me laugh out loud. Like when he said after Kristi Noem's terrible final appearance in the Senate and the House, where she lied about what happened to the $200 million ad campaign money, he said, Kristi Noem is as dead as fried chicken. And then yesterday or 2 days ago, when he was talking about Trump's holy war against Pope Leo and the world's Catholics, he basically saying this is the dumbest thing he's ever seen. We got to stop with these attacks on our constituency. He then said, he started it with this, Karen. He said, this is not a phrase, by the way, unless you're going to correct me. He said, I love Trump like a taco. However, I'm like, wait a minute. Did he just troll Donald Trump and call him a taco?
Yeah,
That's not a kid's phrase today.
Yeah.
Like, I love you like a taco. That's not a thing.
It's true.
I'm sure he was, either subliminally or intentionally trolling the guy.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right.
I love you like a taco.
Well, I do love tacos. So
yeah. I told people when I reported on that, I said, my 2-year-old daughter loves a song called It's Raining Tacos, but I don't think that's quite what they were referring to.
No, it's not what they were referring to. Thankfully, he chickens out when it comes to some of the.
Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, end of our show.
Final word. I mean, what can I say other than what you said before about how important it is to vote? That's the single most important thing. It's what I tell everybody. When people complain, when people come to me, when they say, what are we doing? I have no hope. How can this happen? Tell me that it's not as bad as I'm reading, or that some people say it is. And the word I say to everybody is vote. You got to vote. You got to vote. And then there's some people who still say, but my vote doesn't matter. I'm just one person. It matters. They all matter. You've got to vote.
The force multiplier for that person who says that, I have heard that, is what I said earlier. You may be a blue state or a red dot in a blue dot in a red state, then go help the party in the states, the battleground. If this comes down to 6 states again, just go work in those 6 states. You can do it from the comfort of your own living room.
Such good advice. It's such good advice, because there are Democrats in red states. It's just a lot of them feel it doesn't matter. I'm in a red sea. This is going to happen no matter what. But if you get all the Democrats in all of these red states to actually show up and vote, some of them might make a difference. You never know, because it's not like there's 100%. There's not 100% voter turnout, right? Right.
Let's make Texas purple. Tallarico he's printing money right now.
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, he's printing money, and if money doesn't always convert into electoral success. See Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
However, it is an indicator, an indicia of where the public mood is, the electorate mood is right now. Right.
100%.
There, you had the last word. Okay, Legal AF. See us on Saturday with Ben Meiselas and Michael Popok. You just joined a midweek with Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and Michael Popok. Legal AF, the YouTube channel. If you can't get enough, can't get your fill, that's where you need to go. Legal AF, the Substack, same thing. Become a member and all of that. And support our pro-democracy sponsors and this podcast, the Webby Award-winning Legal AF podcast.
So exciting.
Till our next report, I'm Michael Popok with Karen Friedman, Agnifilo.